Spotting a seemingly ordinary Lincoln cent in a pocket or a change jar might not feel like striking gold, but the 1985 penny is proof that even the most familiar pieces can hide extraordinary surprises. A subtle doubling of a date, an unexpected off-center strike, or a stray die crack can turn what you thought was spare change into a showpiece that draws gasps at auction. Today, we're peeling back the coppery patina to reveal how a brief hiccup in the minting process can elevate an everyday penny into a prized rarity. The story of this little copper disc begins with Victor David Brenner's iconic Lincoln portrait, first introduced in 1909 to commemorate Abraham Lincoln's centennial. By 1985, that design was as entrenched in American coinage as the stripes on the flag. The obverse features Lincoln's profile in raised relief, while the reverse carries the familiar depiction of the Lincoln Memorial, honoring a monument unveiled to the public in 1922. Though the artistic concept was nearly 8 decades old at that point, the processes and machinery had evolved, and in those improvements lie the chances for tiny errors. In '85, the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint together produced over 14 billion Lincoln cents. Millions passed through everyday commerce, pressed against pockets, dropped at toll booths, and jangled in registers. Each regular issue cent is 95% copper over a thin zinc core, resulting in that signature reddish-brown tone that ages through a spectrum of russet shades. A standard coin shows Lincoln's jawline crisply defined, the date plainly stamped, and lettering so precise it's easy to read, "In God We Trust," and "United States of America," without a magnifier. Yet behind the scenes, those high-speed presses and rotating dies sometimes misalign for a fraction of a second. A slight shift in the hub that creates the master die produces doubling of letters or numbers on the coin's surface. When that double die strikes a planchet, it leaves ghost-like echoes of its own design, usually most visible around the date or in the first letters of Liberty. A quick glance without magnification might miss the whisper of a second impression, but once spotted, it becomes almost impossible to ignore. Another dramatic glitch arises when a planchet isn't fully secured by the collar die during striking. Instead of crisp, even rims, you get a broad strike, a flatter, wider coin with a smooth, feathery border. The missing rim letters, the stretched-out fields, and the soft, diffused look all scream error, even to someone who only casually handles coins. Off-center strikes play a similar tune, anything from a hair's-breadth displacement up to a wild dramatic shift where Lincoln's portrait nearly walks right off the edge. Honing in on these rarities requires only a basic toolkit, a trusty jeweler's loupe, 10x magnification is ideal, a soft pad for inspecting coins gently, and a well-lit workspace. Start by examining the date and mint mark. What should be a single, clear impression might show doubling or a faint secondary outline. Tilt the coin under light to reveal die cracks, fine, spider web lines branching across Lincoln's cheek or lettering where metal flow has fractured the die. Lay the coin flat to spot broad strikes. You'll notice a softly rounded edge and missing rim lettering that shouldn't be there. In unremarkable condition, a circulated 1985 penny is still worth exactly 1 cent. But at the mint state tier, values climb in steady increments. A red-brown MS-63 might trade for a couple of dollars, MS-64 around $5 to $10, and MS-65 approaching $20+. Once you hit MS-66 or MS-67 with intense original luster and flawless surfaces, you're looking at figures in the low hundreds. For collectors who prize perfection, a single misplaced hairline can mean the difference between a $50 coin and one that fetches $200 or $300. At the very top of the scale, a truly pristine piece can astonish even hardened numismatists. One spectacular MS-68 Plus example, exhibiting mirror-like fields and razor-sharp devices, achieved a sale price that quadrupled early projections. That rare specimen, untouched by fingerprints or abrasions, drew fierce bidding from around the globe, underscoring how demand for perfection never wanes, even in something as humble as a penny. Error coins chart an even steeper trajectory. A bold double die obverse in a high mint state can command a 4-figure sum, far surpassing the premium for a flawless standard strike. Dramatic off-center pieces, especially those with 30% displacement or more, regularly trade in the hundreds, with particularly attractive examples, featuring clear portrait details and appealing coloration, piercing the $1,000 mark. Broad strike cents, if well centered in terms of error and retaining full mint luster, often climb to similar levels. Collectors often share anecdotes of ordinary finds blossoming into unexpected fortunes. One enthusiast, sifting through rolls for Lincoln Memorial cents, uncovered a coin with a tiny crack snaking across Lincoln's jawline. Authentication later confirmed a significant die break, and the coin moved from a dime-value curiosity to a $350 highlight sale. In another story, a dealer spotted a coin bearing the faint impression of a second D mint mark, so crisp it looked intentional, and sold it privately for over $700. These tales circulate among collectors like modern-day legends. That year's minting process introduced its own quirks. A brief contamination in one plating bath led to sporadic coins with partial zinc exposure, leaving patches of bright, untinned metal against traditional copper. Meanwhile, subtle tweaks in the Denver Mint's collar design produced occasional broad strikes, granting those few pennies a distinctive, flared-edge profile. Every eccentricity hints at a hidden chapter in a coin's journey from raw metal to collectible marvel. Condition remains king. Even a hairline scratch across Lincoln's cheek can dash the hopes of a high-grade PCGS or NGC holder, dropping a candidate from MS67 to MS65 and slashing market value by more than half. Conversely, coins displaying full red color with untarnished surfaces, usually graded red or RD by major grading services, often achieve premiums above their numeric grade, especially when they present flawless fields free of hairlines, bag marks, or contact marks. Grading services play a pivotal role in cementing value. Professional certification offers buyers confidence that a coin's grade reflects its true condition and that error attributions, like double dies or off-center strikes, are genuine. A black label, designator or a specialty attribution for an error can further solidify a coin's desirability, making it easier to trade or auction among collectors who demand absolute certainty. To spot the winners, focus on a handful of telltale signs. Unwavering luster and even coloration signal high grades, doubling in key areas. The date, Liberty, or In God We Trust, points to a double die variety. Irregular outer rims or missing letters shout broad strike, and fine lines radiating across the field reveal die cracks. Every specimen you examine is a potential story, waiting for someone with a discerning eye to give it a second chapter. As you curate your collection, bear in mind that the thrill of the hunt is part of the coin's allure. Whether it's an MS65 red that earns nods of admiration in a gallery case or a broad stripe that sits proudly among your error highlights, each 1985 penny carries the legacy of a million others, and the promise that one among them might be the next headline grabber at auction. Having unraveled the hidden world of the 1985 Lincoln cent, from its storied background and run-of-the-mill composition to the extraordinary twists that birth high-value error coins, we'll soon turn our attention to its modern cousin. Next on our journey is the 2010 penny, a surprisingly fertile ground for its own array of quirks and valuable mistakes. Stick around to see how more recent minting tweaks continue to captivate seasoned collectors and new investors alike. Shifting gears to a more recent issue, the 2010 Lincoln cent may seem even more ordinary at first glance, yet collectors know that every penny from the modern era holds the potential for fascinating misprints and surprises. Released during a period of experimental minting tweaks, the 2010 penny merges a familiar design with a host of contemporary varieties, and a handful of eye-catching errors, that can turn pocket change into an unexpected prize. The Lincoln Memorial design, first introduced in 1959, carried on through 2010, pairing Brenner's enduring obverse portrait with the reverse depiction of the Washington Monument to Lincoln's legacy. But unlike earlier vintages, post-1982 cents swapped solid copper for a copper-plated zinc core, reducing weight to 2.5 grams and keeping the 19.05 mm diameter. In 2010, the U.S. Mint struck coins at Philadelphia, no mint mark, and Denver, D., but also produced a limited proof run at West Point, W., with fewer than 40,000 pieces released as part of the annual proof set. Those West Point proofs, bearing a small W beneath the date, immediately caught collectors' eyes due to their rarity and immaculate finish. Under the loupe, a typical 2010 cent reveals zero-error perfection, razor-sharp rim, vivid copper luster on the plating, crisp lettering on Liberty and In God We Trust, and a detailed memorial interior with clearly defined columns. Yet that very precision sets the stage for striking anomalies. Double die obverse examples, where the hubbing process imparted a faint secondary impression, often show the clearest doubling in the final digit of the date or in the top serifs of the L and I in Liberty. Repunched mint marks occur when the D is struck twice on the die at slightly different angles, leaving a ghost image that is most obvious under high magnification. Planchet and striking errors add even more variety. Off-center strikes range from mild shifts that crop Lincoln's shoulder to dramatic displacements edging out half the reverse. Broad strikes, a vintage error reborn, appear when a planchet isn't properly constrained, yielding a flattened, flared border and often a smooth, unlettered rim. Lamination errors, where the copper plating separates from the zinc core, produce patches of bare silver-colored metal, a feature collectors prize for its visual contrast. A few blank planchets slipped through the presses entirely, delivering small, unstruck zinc discs that command attention for their sheer novelty. In average circulated grades, a 2010 penny remains face value, 1 cent, but at mint state levels, values climb in predictable tiers. An MS-63 red BN might sell for just 25 to 50 cents, while an MS-65 RD can reach $2 to $5 in online markets. West Point proofs, graded PR70 DCAM, often trade between $50 and $75 due to their limited mintage and cameo contrast, with PR69 specimens still fetching $20 to $30. Error coins chart a steeper ascent. A well-defined double die in MS-66 can approach $500, and a dramatic 40% off-center strike with strong details may command $300 to $400, depending on centering and eye appeal. Collectors recount tales of stumbling across these rarities in rolls. One hobbyist discovered a 2010 D broad strike while sorting through a handful of Denver cents. The coin's flared edge and missing rim lettering were immediately apparent under a desk lamp, and after grading at MS-63BN, it sold for $275. Another anecdote involves a blank planchet polished to a matte sheen, offered on a popular auction site. It attracted over 50 bids before closing above $350. Even modest lamination splits can draw $100 or more when they create a sharply contrasted patch against a red-brown field. The broader context of 2010 minting sheds light on why these errors occur. That year, the Philadelphia Mint trialed a new annealing process aimed at improving consistency in the plating bath, but the change briefly introduced spots of inconsistent copper adherence. Meanwhile, collar die adjustments at Denver sought to refine rim thickness, inadvertently allowing a handful of broad strikes. Such technical footnotes remind collectors that every production run, no matter how refined, can yield memorable outliers. Understanding condition-based valuation requires attention to both plating quality and surface preservation. A full red label indicates strong original copper color, whereas red-brown, RB, and brown, BN, denote progressive toning. Grading services weigh plating integrity heavily. Even if a coin achieves MS-67, loss of original red color can shave 30 to 50% off its potential value. Conversely, a flawless cameo proof that pairs deep mirrored fields with frosted devices can earn a premium of 20 to 30% over its numeric grade. To hunt down the most collectible pieces, inspect coins under a 10x loupe with a daylight-balanced lamp. Tilt the surface to reveal doubling in high-relief zones, look for uneven edge thickness signaling broad strikes, and lay coins flat to spot lamination or planchet flaws. Subtle die cracks often appear as spiderweb lines around the bust or on the memorial columns, and any tiny flake of missing copper can indicate a potential lamination error. Don't forget to check for the elusive W mint mark. Proofs from West Point slip past casual eyes easily. Beyond raw value, the 2010 penny carries its own lore. At local club meetings, collectors swap tales of finding a ghost D on an otherwise bland penny, only to uncover a crisp repunched mint mark hidden beneath dirt. Dealers recall a batch of proof sets that yielded an unexpected cameo specimen, one of under $1,000, that later sold for over $120. Even seasoned numismatists admit there is something thrilling about lifting a random cent to the light, spotting the smallest irregularity, and realizing you may be holding a modern rarity. With modern grading guaranteeing authenticity and condition, the 2010 cent continues to offer entry points for both newcomers and advanced collectors. Low-grade errors priced under $100 allow budding enthusiasts to experience the excitement of error varieties, while high-end doubles and broadstrikes sustain a steady market of discerning investors. As a result, the 2010 penny stands as a testament to how even the most recent issues can surprise us. Having peeled back the layers on the 2010 Lincoln cent, its design lineage, minting quirks, error varieties, market values, and condition nuances, we've seen how a coin barely older than a decade can still spark discovery and debate among collectors. With both the 1985 and 2010 pennies now laid bare, the closing chapter will tie together the lessons these two issues offer about finding unexpected treasures in everyday change.